The dim glow of the chandelier reflected off the gold-rimmed glasses of the wedding guests. Their whispers barely masked the sound of the officiant's voice. Amid the sea of wealthy elites sat a young man, barely in his 20s, clad in a tailored tuxedo that didn't quite fit his thin frame. His hands trembled as he placed the ring on the delicate, wrinkled hand of the woman standing before him, a 71-year-old business tycoon, Eleanor Sinclair. To the world, their union was an enigma wrapped in scandal. Was it love? Was it a transaction? No one knew for sure, not even the groom himself. But 7 days later, his life was upended by something he never saw coming. The shock of what he uncovered would turn his world inside out. This is the true story of Daniel Carter, the poor student who married into fortune and found himself at the center of an astonishing revelation. Daniel Carter was a struggling university student, living in a cramped apartment with barely enough money to afford his next meal. His days were spent attending lectures, and his nights were occupied by exhausting shifts as a waiter. The burden of student loans and unpaid bills weighed heavily on his shoulders. Each day felt like a battle for survival, a never-ending cycle of work, study, and worry. One evening, while working at an upscale restaurant, he noticed an elderly woman seated alone at a corner table. Her presence was commanding, yet there was an air of solitude around her. She was dressed in an elegant navy blue gown, adorned with pearls that shimmered under the restaurant's dim lighting. Unlike the other wealthy patrons, who barely acknowledged the staff, this woman's gaze met his with a sense of curiosity rather than indifference. As Daniel approached to take her order, she smiled faintly. "You look like a young man with ambition," she said, her voice calm but authoritative. "Tell me, what do you aspire to be?" Daniel hesitated. No one had ever asked him that with genuine interest. "I want to finish my studies and build a stable life," he answered truthfully. "But it is difficult when you are constantly struggling just to make it through the month." The woman studied him for a moment before handing him a business card. "My name is Eleanor Sinclair. Call me if you ever need an opportunity," she said before leaving a generous tip and walking out of the restaurant. Daniel stared at the card in disbelief. Eleanor Sinclair was a well-known name in the business world. A self-made millionaire who had built an empire in the luxury hospitality industry. She was a figure both admired and feared. Why would someone like her take an interest in someone like him? A week later, as his financial situation worsened, Daniel made the call. He met Eleanor for dinner at a private club, where she presented him with an offer that left him stunned. She wanted him to marry her. "Marry me, and I will ensure that you never have to worry about money again," she said matter-of-factly. "You will finish your education, and I will take care of all your expenses. In return, I need a husband for reasons I cannot disclose just yet." Daniel was speechless. The proposal seemed surreal. Was this a business arrangement? Was there something more to it? He had heard of marriages of convenience before, but never in a situation like this. He considered his options. If he declined, he would return to a life of struggle and uncertainty. If he accepted, he would be stepping into a world of unimaginable wealth. But at what cost? After days of deliberation, desperation overshadowed his doubts. With no better alternative, he accepted the proposal. 1 week later, he stood at the altar, exchanging vows with Eleanor Sinclair. Little did he know, he had just sealed a fate far more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. The wedding was an extravagant affair, held in one of Eleanor Sinclair's luxurious estates. The grand ballroom was adorned with crystal chandeliers, rare floral arrangements, and a guest list composed of the world's wealthiest individuals. The media was abuzz with speculation. Many questioned the true nature of the marriage. Was Daniel Carter merely a gold digger, or was there a deeper, more sinister reason behind this unlikely union? As Daniel stood beside Eleanor, he could not ignore the lingering stares of the guests. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to outright disdain. The weight of judgment pressed down on him, but Eleanor appeared unfazed. She carried herself with the same poise and confidence that had defined her entire career. When they exchanged vows, her voice was steady, devoid of hesitation. Daniel, on the other hand, felt a gnawing unease settle in his stomach. The first few days of marriage were a whirlwind of wealth and luxury. Daniel moved into Eleanor's mansion, a sprawling estate so vast that he could get lost within its halls. Every room was adorned with priceless art, rare antiques, and relics from a lifetime of unimaginable privilege. The staff treated him with polite formality, but there was something peculiar in their behavior. Their eyes followed him with quiet apprehension, as if they knew something he did not. Eleanor was kind, even affectionate, but she was also secretive. There were rooms in the mansion that Daniel was explicitly forbidden to enter. When he asked about them, she dismissed his curiosity with a soft smile. "Some things are best left alone," she said. At night, Daniel found himself lying awake, unable to shake the growing sense of unease. The mansion, despite its grandeur, felt eerily silent, almost lifeless. It was on the 7th night of their marriage that he finally discovered the truth lurking behind the walls of wealth. He woke to the faint sound of voices. Slipping out of bed, he followed the hushed murmurs down the long, dimly lit hallway. The voices were coming from Eleanor's study, a room that had been locked since his arrival. Pressing his ear against the door, he listened. "He does not know yet," a deep, unfamiliar voice muttered. "He will, soon enough," Eleanor's voice responded, calm yet firm. A cold shiver ran down Daniel's spine. What was it that he was not supposed to know? His heart pounded in his chest as he backed away from the door, his mind racing with questions. Why had Eleanor married him? What was she hiding? The following morning, Eleanor left on an urgent business trip. Seizing the opportunity, Daniel decided to investigate. He searched the house, his hands trembling as he tried the locked doors. When he reached her private study, he forced the door open. The room was filled with papers, legal documents, and files bearing his name. But one particular document made his blood run cold: a death certificate. It was his own. The date of death was listed just a few days away. Daniel's breath came in short, panicked gasps. He stared at the paper in disbelief, his mind refusing to accept what was in front of him. Why would Eleanor have a death certificate for him? Had he been nothing more than a pawn in a game he did not understand? His hands shook as he flipped through the other documents. Each one pointed to a terrifying reality. He had unknowingly signed more than just a marriage contract. He had signed away his very life. Daniel's hands trembled as he clutched the death certificate. The weight of realization crashed over him like a tidal wave. His marriage to Eleanor Sinclair had never been about love or companionship. It had been a calculated move. But for what purpose? And why did the documents indicate his imminent death? A surge of panic overtook him. He had to get out. He had to leave the mansion before it was too late. As he turned to flee, a chilling voice cut through the silence. "You were not supposed to find that, Daniel." He spun around to find Eleanor standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. She was calm, composed, almost as if she had expected this moment to come. "What is this?" Daniel demanded, his voice cracking with fear. "Why do you have a death certificate with my name on it?" Eleanor sighed, stepping further into the room. "Sit down, Daniel." "I am not sitting down," he snapped. "Tell me what is going on." Eleanor studied him for a long moment before finally speaking. "I had no intention of keeping this from you forever," she said, her voice eerily steady. "But the truth is, I needed you for something far greater than marriage." Daniel felt his knees go weak. "What do you mean?" She exhaled deeply. "I am dying, Daniel. I have been for a long time." Her words stunned him into silence. He had never seen any signs of illness in her. She was always composed, always in control. But now, as he looked at her, he noticed the subtle signs, the slight paleness in her complexion, the way her hands trembled ever so slightly. "I built an empire," she continued. "But power comes with enemies. There are those who would do anything to see me gone, and I had to protect what I have built. That is where you came in." Daniel felt a pit form in his stomach. "I do not understand." Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. "By marrying you, I ensured that my wealth and assets were tied to someone outside of my enemy's reach. But it also made you a target. Daniel took a step back, his breath shallow. A target? There are people who will not stop until I am dead, Eleanor admitted. And now that you are legally tied to me, they will come for you too. Daniel's world spun. He had unknowingly walked into a web of deception, power, and danger. So what happens now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor looked at him with an emotion he could not quite place. You need to leave, Daniel. Tonight. The urgency in her tone sent a chill down his spine. What about you? Eleanor's expression softened, but there was a sadness in her eyes. I made my choice a long time ago. You, however, still have a chance. Daniel did not hesitate. He fled that night, leaving behind the wealth, the luxury, and the woman who had changed his life forever. Days later, he saw the news. Eleanor Sinclair was dead under mysterious circumstances. His name was still in the will, but Daniel never claimed the fortune. He vanished, his story becoming nothing more than whispers in the dark. A cautionary tale of love, power, and the terrifying price of secrets.